Not least, I suppose we should kick off, Alan, a very good morning to you, with Mr Donald Trump. I mean, that was the big story this morning when I woke up, before what happened in Scotland, but we'll come back to that later on. What do you make of the circus that is the Donald Trump sort of court case and the court hearing yesterday? It was quite remarkable, wasn't it?
Oh, Mike, circus is exactly the word. I mean, talk about this whole sort of farcical process. Here you have Trump. We know that this has been hanging over him for sort of, months and years, this sort of various potential indictments coming his way. He predicted he'd be arrested because he knew obviously it was coming down the line. And here we go. He's in court theatre, 34 apparent felonies. He'll go and fight them now. He's going to spend the whole time defending himself across the country. And I don't think Americans will be any the wiser at the end of this process. I don't think he will be any wiser. However, it's quite clear that he intends to use this as a big campaigning issue, and it may well help him gain more prominence politically.
Well, it's very much working in his favour at the moment, it seems to me. And I think without even asking anybody what side they're on, most people were quite surprised at how weak the case appears to be and why on earth this man, who is, Alvin Bragg, has brought the case is very clear. He's done it because he wants to bring Donald Trump down, which was his stated intention when he was running for office.
Well, he's not going to bring Donald Trump down with this, and that's the perversity of this. I can't see how Alvin Bragg could possibly think he's going to bring Donald Trump down, because the common consensus among any commentators, legal commentators, is that the charges are so minor. Yes, they're real. I mean, we shouldn't pretend that there is, no case to answer here, but they're charges that will be resolved by fining somebody rather than any jail time. So what exactly are they trying to achieve by this? And, if there is more stuff coming down the line, for example, the Georgia election tampering, other cases that might be more significant, should they not have waited for that rather than rushing into this whole process now?
Well, I mean, unless they're very clever, which I very much doubt, they could be using this, I suppose, as a setup so that, if he wins this, he thinks he's got away with something, and then they hit him with something a bit more serious. But it would appear that that's not the case, because the next court hearing is not until December.
Well, exactly, and that's what's so mysterious about all of this. Look, again, I don't think anyone should make any excuses for law breaking. I think, most people, when presented the evidence, would suggest, Trump may well have done what he'd been accused of. But the question is, number one, does this warrant the circus that's emerged? Number two, is the timing correct on this, and should it not have worked better? And number three, there is a theory doing the rounds that the reason this has been put forward is indeed to, if you like, have Democrats promote Trump, because it's going to be far too weak to wound him. It'll add to a sense of grievance among his supporters, and it will actually knock out, potentially more sensible Republican candidates who will be, kind of facing wounded, sort of vindicated Trump in this whole process.
But as somebody I was speaking to last night in America said to me, it's a very dangerous strategy for the Democrats if they want to end up with Trump as the Republican nominee, because if it is Trump against Biden, anything's possible in a two-man, two-horse race. To wit, Biden could trip over, fall down some stairs, mistake somebody's identity, say the wrong thing. Any number of things could happen to him, and that would give the White House back to Trump.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd agree with you entirely there, Mike. Don't forget that in this country, when Jeremy Corbyn was elected Labour leader in 2015, there were a few people, I knew a few, who joined Labour precisely to engineer this outcome and thought, you know what, let's get Corbyn, it'll be a disaster. And then let's not forget, he almost won the 2017 general election. And, we could have had a disaster on our hands. So you're quite right. This is a potentially dangerous tactic to use. And while it may look sensible for Democrats to say, oh, Trump's the weaker candidate right now, you never know. Politics is a long time. I mean, Biden might keel over and die. Anything's possible.
Yeah, well, indeed. And it's not a million miles from the truth. Let's just have a quick look at what Donald Trump had to say last night. He made a big speech at Mar-o-Lago, his home in Florida, which was raided, of course, remember, by the FBI last year. He flew back from New York after the arraignment hearing. And here's what he had to say about the process.
And this is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign, and a lot of it.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with Donald Trump that this is a witch hunt, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, look, there are legal issues that need to be resolved. There's no doubt about it. I don't think, pursuit of justice, if you like, is necessarily legal. But the way the Americans do pursuit of justice sometimes is clearly political. And that's, I think, is the question now. Like I said, if you're really after getting Donald Trump, this is not the way to do it, because at best he'll come away, with a slap wrist and a fine. And at worst, he may even, if you're, after him, he may be able to bat it off if he's got a coherent defence on this side. So the whole thing is puzzling to me.
It really is very strange. Let's talk about Emmanuel Macron. Apparently he's tootled off to China to do something about French-Chinese relations. I'm not quite sure what for. What do you reckon he's up to?
Well, no doubt, knowing the French, it'll be some commercial deal he's looking to sign up. We often disdain the French, but actually they are remarkably successful at economic diplomacy. They are able to insert their businesses and other activities into other countries very well. And my feeling is that for all Macron saying, I'm here to calm relations and to tell Xi to be with the West, I would not be unsurprised if there was a commercial reason to him going as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, he's not in a good place at the moment domestically, is he? I mean, things in France probably couldn't be worse, but then look at the effects it had on our travelling to France just last weekend, where, everyone was blaming Brexit for it, but clearly the French are still sort of punishing Britain for leaving the EU.
Well, absolutely. And let's look at this quite logically. I don't understand, and I'm sure you don't either, how it is that when I arrive at Heathrow or another airport in this country, EU nationals can come in the same gates, the same electronic gates, Mike, that British citizens can, but when we go there, we are condemned to second-class status.
Right.
Why was there not a reciprocal agreement made by the government on this?
Well, you do wonder, don't you?
Yeah, it makes no sense. How are we giving them preferential status and we're being treated in a second-class way? I think it's shocking, actually.
Yeah, well, I was talking to a caller yesterday who rang in and said it's all very well saying, well, Britain's now a third country. Well, so is Switzerland. But he flies to Switzerland on a regular basis and drives straight over the border into France. No border checks at all. Now, you can say that might be some agreement that they've made with the EU because they're not in it. But why have we not done that?
Exactly. I don't get that. We are frequent travellers to the EU. We've got close connections with the EU. The EU claims to want a close relationship with us, even if we're not in it. Why would they make this a miserable process? And if they are making it a miserable process, and the government has been trying to negotiate, it should reveal to the British people that the Europeans are being difficult on this subject needlessly, because, as you've just said, Switzerland proves it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely right.